Okay, we are live on LinkedIn. This is the first episode of Inbox Invaders, joined by our legendary COO, Vian Brits. Vian, welcome, man.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to have some fun conversations around everything email, SMS, retention marketing. So let's get started.
Great to see you. And we do have our special guest, the legendary Jack himself, joining us as I can see now. How are you doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. Why so much formality, brother? Why so much formality?
Am I not
Before
usually formal?
What?
Am I not usually formal?
I don't know. I don't know. But if you let me be, I can start. Dropping a few good words to make this more amenable.
Yeah, we don't want
Let's
to
be
lose our
honest.
whole client roster, so we'll try and put on the professional face. We won't tell people what we really talk about behind closed doors.
Oh my God! What's up, guys?
We're doing
good,
well.
always doing well. Yourself?
Good to hear. Yeah, same old, same old. I can't complain. I can't complain.
Good
Cool.
stuff.
So just so everyone knows, the format's going to be Jack. We're going to have you on for the first half an hour. Chat through things. If anyone has any questions for Jack, just pop it in the comments here. We'll get around to it. We're just going to have a natural chat about how you started your company, challenges you faced along the way, any funny stories that you might want to share, biggest mistakes, and then you'll jump off and me and Vian will continue the conversation, mainly focused around email.
Awesome, awesome. Where do you want to start?
Let's do a quick intro, Jack. Tell us about Duradry, how you started, and also your journey as an entrepreneur.
Okay. That's a good word, a good place to start. So, I launched it in 2017. Um, that's about 6 years ago. Mostly bootstrap. I have only raised very little money from angels. Um, we're currently on a mid seven figures run rate. We sell on our website. We sell on Amazon. We sell on a bunch of other marketplaces. And before I keep going, Duradry is a brand that, or the vision for the brand is to build the next generation of deodorants and antiperspirants. So that's super effective, but at the same time, as clean as possible from the ingredient list perspective. So we want to pair the effectiveness of the incumbents and actually make it even better when it comes to sweat control and odor control, and at the same time try to make our formulas as clean as possible, not only for us but for the environment. Okay, so that's the short version. Moved to the US 10 years ago. I'm originally from Venezuela, that's in South America, and have been in CPG for 20 years easily. So this is not, let's say, my first company in CPG. That's what I did back in Venezuela, but the model was different. I used to do that selling through the regular B2B physical retail channels. Okay, I think that's a good summary to start.
And just so everyone knows who's watching, the business was very distressed right until you started working with us, and that was the turning point for when you started to scale it.
Come again, come again.
I said the business was very distressed before you started to work with Magna Monster, and that was the real turning point, right? And around 2020.
I can't recall if it was very distressed. But to be honest, like people think, and this is some real talk, guys. Okay, so I don't know who's watching this, who's not, but just between us, right? So um, I don't consider, like, people think that, because we'll see on Twitter and LinkedIn people pumping their brands. Hey, look what we did! This other thing, and we just launched this, and we just launched that. It's bullshit. Okay. We're all trying to figure it out. And, going back to your, distressed joke, I consider every day to be a distress, like we're still in distress mode. Like if you see our bank account, we're still trying to figure out things, move this here, move this, move that there, and then we can invest in this, we can invest in that. Like, that's the reality, because the whole point is to maximize your growth trajectory without going bankrupt, right? That's the bet. Because at the size that we're at, and this is just for anyone and everyone that's in CPG, or honestly any product, but especially in CPG, because it's all about scale. You're selling like cheap stuff, and it's all about scale. When you're a million, 2 million, 3 million, like, I think that until like minimum 10 to 20 million, you are in no one's land, because only PEs are going to be interested in buying your company, and that's only if you have a strong EBITDA margin. And usually the ones that I've met, the good ones, are interested in 3 million plus in EBITDA. And then strategics will only take a look at your face above 25 to 30 million. So that's why, going back to where I started, that's the distress part. Like, dude, I'm not going to go anywhere if I keep the company at mid 7 figures, because, it's, unsellable. So I'm going to be in distress for a long time until I get to that trajectory.
Yeah, it is a brutal business, isn't it? I think from the outside looking in, at least my experience as well, before we started Market Monster, I had a store, and it is a brutal, ruthless game. I think there's that misconception that because it is quite easy in many ways to start a e-commerce brand, that it's super sexy because of the emphasis on marketing, but those times are well gone, and it's actually a very hard business to run profitably at scale. And most of the brands that we speak to always said, we wish you had an agency, and most agencies that you speak to said they wish they had a brand. So it's that classic paradox.
Yeah. And also, you know what? A new one is that us brands wish we had a SaaS business. Because we see these SaaS companies creating products that, first, they don't have inventory, then they can do everything remote. There's no logistics, there's no regulatory things. But I can't imagine, like, if someone thinks that our business is easy, I am sure that if I think SaaS or agencies are easy, I'm sure that it's not. I'm sure that once you start digging, all the bad parts of the business come out, right?
And Vian can probably speak to this more than me these days, but I've been doing this 5.5 years on the agency side. So I think one of the interesting things is that you have the luxury of working with the winners, and also you work with businesses that are not doing well. But every single company I've worked with, I've never got the sense, even the really successful and profitable ones, that the people at the helm had it under control. It's all been a dumpster fire of trying to figure things out every single day. So even from, again, the outside looking in, it seems as though they're crushing it, they're doing amazing. The people who are controlling them are still extremely stressed, to the point where it seems like they don't have a clue and they're unorganized, but somehow they just make it work. So it's fascinating.
No, 100%. 100%. And again, I want to double down on this comment, because it definitely affected me until I got more knowledge about a bunch of these brands out there on Twitter and LinkedIn. Everyone is pumping something, and you feel that everyone is crushing but you. Bullshit. Maybe out of those 100 people, maybe 5 are crushing out of 100 people that are just, all the time tweeting or posting on LinkedIn about their successful business or new product launch or whatever. So, just don't feel that you're being left behind. It's like similar to Instagram. If you're a woman and you see all the freaking models, because it just looks like everyone is a model nowadays and you feel like shitty. Bullshit. Out of 100 people, maybe one, and or maybe two, and of those two, probably like 1.5 is photoshopping and using filters and spending the whole day trying not to eat food. You know what I mean? Like, it's not real. Anything
Yeah,
that
not everyone's as naturally beautiful as me. I agree.
Exactly. Look at that chiseled mandible.
Look, it's funny you say that, because we always laugh at how many people and brands out there want to imitate what Duradry is doing. I want Duradry's emails and look and feel and their success. So I think you saying it from the inside. On the outside, I think so many people almost want to aspire to become the Duradrys, or the Jones Road Beauty, or Mr. Beast, Olipop, all those big brands. So
Okay,
I think
those yes.
you are winning. You are winning in that category because everybody wants to be Duradry. We see it across email marketers and brands.
Oh wow.
So splendid job there.
This is the secret to great email marketing. Okay. Number one is having a great agency. Okay. So definitely, I promise Magnet Monster, if someone is watching, just trust them for a few months and then judge. But that's one key. Another key is to have a very, very well defined style. Like, you need two things basically: colors and typography, right? Third is to align on content. And to be honest, most of the time, a good email marketing agency like Magnet Monster is going to help you a ton with that, right? Because every month, before the beginning of the month, I get an email from you guys. Hey, this is a plan. Are you do you object to anything? And then we switch and swap stuff, but you develop all the content. And fourth, and I think this is one of the big keys, is just to have good photography. Just find 2 or 3 sources of photography, run a few photo shoots, and just it's going to last you for at least 6 months, right? So as simple as that.
Guys, I mean, Vian, you could write a book about this, right? It's like, it's funny because, Jack, you would not believe how many brands way higher revenue than Duradry. We're talking about people approaching the 9-figure range who've approached us and said, I want my emails to look like that, and I want the copy to be like that. And then they've started, and they don't have the assets, they don't have the photography, they don't allow you to speak in a certain tone of voice. And obviously strategy is a completely separate discussion. But again, Vian is definitely in the trenches on a day-to-day basis, having those types of conversations. So I think for me, a key message would be, if you're going to hire an agency, you need to give them some creative bandwidth as well, because there's a lot of brands who hire agencies, not just on the email front, but then they put a lot of restrictions and guardrails in place. And you might as well just do it yourself in-house if that's your mentality.
100%, bro. 100%. The whole point of having an email marketing agency is to delegate as much as you can from that, part of the business, right? And that's where I think that's where choosing the right agency makes a difference, right? Because how can you delegate if you don't trust what they're doing? And if you don't trust what they're doing, what's the point of having them? The email marketing agency, I mean, right? It defeats the purpose, as you said. Yeah, no, 100%. Switching gears a little bit, right? Because honestly, I don't know what's the purpose of people watching, but switching the gears a little bit. Something that I've seen, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that I've seen brands starting like maybe late last year to be much more aggressive on discounts. Okay. And it's definitely a trend within brands. And I think it's in response to the macro trend of the consumer pocket compressing due to inflation and a bunch of things are going on, right? And I wonder what you guys, what's your take on that? Because I'm afraid to jump on that bandwagon and then become a discount brand, right? Which I'm trying to resist. At the same time, you need to grow. You need to, right? So, what are your thoughts there?
It's look, I mean, it's always a hot topic. We had a conversation with Jack last year where we actually unpacked a lot of the discount related topics. Is it good? Is it bad? Where within the customer journey do you start to discount? Is it top of the funnel acquisition side, or is it to drive repeat purchases? Now, of course, we all know discounts aren't always bad. I think there's usually two camps. There's the camp that just go flat out discounts, and then you've got the camp that is like completely against it, which is not fair, because we know if you tie it to your unit economics, your numbers, and you can afford it against your profit margins, fine. Does it run the risk of course, creating a discount brand? Of course. You are conditioning people to wait for that discount. That's always a risk you run. But we've seen many cases where when a brand starts with us, we do the pop-ups on the website, full on discounts, 10%, 15%, whatever the case may be, stock standard. And then later down the journey with us, the partnership, they basically decide to switch it off. And in probably about 70% of cases, we do see massive drop-offs in, of course, form submission rate and place order rate and so forth. Now, we all know there's ways to counter that, which is usually value-based. If you can, give away like value with your incentives, I think that's usually a smarter approach. Your typical free shipping or free gift, over a certain spend threshold, those are great. But I think, Jack, something that you've said a while ago in that session is that you tend to distribute your discount thresholds according to different stages within the buyer's journey with your brand and your product, which I think is very smart. I remember once, I can't remember why we switched it off. I think the mechanics around it was a bit tricky, but we had a so people on a subscription, on every, I think it was fifth order, you would then drop a discount. So you bake in that milestone. You've achieved a milestone. So it's a milestone for the end consumer as well as you as a brand, and then you start to hit discounts. So I think there's a tactful approach to discount.
I think we should. Yeah, I think that we should go back and do that again. By the way, maybe not on the 5th, maybe on the 4th. And the issue back then was the logistics. You're correct. We're working Recharge, and Recharge had launched that product of Surprise and Delight. We have since switched to Scale, and it's part of it. Like it will be super easy to implement. So definitely we should do that. But when it comes to retention, just related thought, but not directly, just like as an FYI to everyone watching. You want to focus on the first and second repurchase more than the 5th, right? Like, because it's simple math. Like if you lose 40% of the first repurchase, then whatever gains you get on the second, third, and fourth are based off of what's left on the first repurchase, right? So the first target is the first repurchase event. Of course, you don't want to give gifts that early. It's a matter of figuring it out. We have done a lot of education, right? Meaning with email for those people. Okay, so question, tactically speaking, going to the discounts. What if we run discounts on the newsletter, on the as campaigns, and and we exclude people that ordered in the last, let's say, 45 days, right?
Yeah.
So no one will feel that the discounts are coming too often, right?
I think that's the logical way to go about it. I think if you look at CPG, right, you did any type of cohort analysis, if someone doesn't come back within 30 to 45 days, especially for a product like yours, Jack, they're highly likely to have gone. I mean, you're going to lose like 60 to 70% of people who buy the first time anyway. So if you just look at things very pragmatically, this is just my opinion without going into all these complex permutations of whether you're a discount brand, retail pricing, etc. De-risk the first purchase because there's a lot of options around. So make it a no-brainer to buy from you in a sensible way that doesn't erode your margin and it's conducive to making sure you stay within your CAC target.
I hear you.
And secondly, don't offer a discount to people until they pass that threshold. So wait for the 30 to
threshold when.
So it depends, right? Like on your brand, like when is the biggest drop off? Of course, it's from first to second purchase, but what's the time frame? If you look at the median placed order for second order, I would just look at that, see when people are highly likely to drop off, offer them a discount. So it's just a very basic rudimentary win back strategy, I suppose, to drive that second sale. And that way, theoretically, like you've just said, people who've bought within the last 45 to 60 days, you're hoping that they buy again at full margin. And people who fall out of that bucket, well, they're a churn risk anyway. So who cares if you offer them a discount?
Exactly. No, 100%. And for the same token, by the way, Adam, a related subject is, and that's, by the way, that's the reason last year we were doing 10 emails a month. And then in Q4, we discussed switching that to 20 emails a month.
Yep.
And the rationale was very simple. Hey, if someone is annoyed by so much email and they unsubscribe, they weren't going to buy anyway, right? So why not pressure them a little bit, right? Like just from a business perspective is what makes sense. I'm not thinking about other factors, right? Just thinking business. If you annoy them for 2 weeks and they didn't buy, well, annoy them, because if you're delivering value via email.
Yeah. Again, I'll let Vian chime in on this, but my perspective has changed quite a lot. And I've always been of the viewpoint, as you know, through working with me for years, that if you don't have anything valuable to say, don't press the send button. At the same time, you have to be realistic. It's e-commerce. You need to make money to keep the lights on, and it can't all just be about fluffy value to drive sales. And sometimes you just have to sell to people again, and there's nothing wrong, and we shouldn't feel guilty of aggressively going after a sale, because that negative perception of brand, it does exist to some extent, but I don't think when I get too many emails from a brand, I'm not going to bed thinking, oh, they sent me too many emails. I just click unsubscribe. If I don't want it, I just click unsubscribe. It doesn't affect the rest of my week that they sent me too many emails. And I think 99.9% of consumers, it's exactly the same. You're not having nightmares because you got too many emails, maybe SMS from a consumer brand.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. By the way, SMS we killed, and we can discuss about that in a second. But about the value, the emails with value. Let me know what you guys think about the following, okay? So at some point, you feel like you're running out of things to say, right? Via email, okay? That is. What are your thoughts about also sharing information about your improvements on everything? For example, hey, we just switched the account management system to a new system that allows you to log in without a password. So it's passwordless. So you don't need to remember your password. Here's how you do it. Boom, that's an email. What are your thoughts about sharing that information that's not related to the product itself, is related to other stuff that might be interesting or not? But what are your thoughts about that?
So, I mean, look, I'm a massive believer. When people tell me that, oh, I've ran out of ideas around my content topics, I'm like, lies, because the world is just full of different angles you can take and so forth. So just to answer that specific question, I love exposing, these type of things. At the end of the day, if it is something that falls within a consumption requirement for, the end consumer, then why not? I think it's easy enough to determine the consumption needs of your buyers, and if that falls within the consumption, requirements or needs, absolutely, absolutely. Especially if it shows transparency, if it shows you improving user experience for them, better experiences. Yeah, I'm all for that. Now, luckily, with your specific brand, it's very easy to come up with like buyer persona profilings or empathy mapping. It's all about sweating and so forth, right? There's a problem that people want to try and solve. So if you do like an empathy map, what people see, hear, what they do in action and so forth, you could uncover some of these needs. How people research online. If they do price comparison shopping, you could turn that into a fun angle within your email. Like, hey, Johnny, you're probably busy doing price comparison shopping. Yeah, let me help you there. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of all these myriad of angles to take. So I would support that.
Yeah, I've seen you also do the forwards type of technique as well, Jack, right? Like FYW.
Yeah, I love that.
Accidentally leaked this discount code. Again, I used to have really strong views on this. Now I just don't think it matters that much because it might make me cringe a little bit, but I just think most consumers, in fact, I know because I'm a consumer myself, just don't even remember this shit or care about it. So unless you're just not saying something that will destroy the brand and like is really not thoughtful, you've got to make money, right? And you've got to experiment and try new things as well.
Just on that point of send volume and is it good, is it bad? Of course, there's certain things you need to keep in mind. I think why I'm in support of it is because the buying journey or decision making of end consumers is so complicated. Yeah, AI is trying to kind of breach that gap and do the training for you. But if I take myself, okay, I want to start kite surfing. I do, but I'm not yet ready. I don't know when I'm going to be ready. So if you're not going to communicate with me as the person on a database, you're not going to trigger those moments that could turn me into a buyer, because you don't know that as a brand. So you do want to fire off a high volume of emails, because at some point you do trigger someone action or likelihood of taking that step. So for that matter, I'm a big fan of sending high volumes, just because it's too unpredictable to know when someone will convert.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's some of the big brands. I think I bought something at J.Crew. Those guys were emailing me maybe 5 times a day. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Fashion Nova do this as well.
Who?
Fashion Nova. They hit you like
It's what works there, it seems, because everyone, it's like they pummel you, like 5 emails a day, bam, 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 bam. Let's extract, let's squeeze you, let's squeeze you dry before you forget about us, right?
Yeah. I did make a post about this last year sometime. I believe that the future of email, and I think this is a position you could bring for a dedicated person, maybe an extension of customer support. I really believe it will be highly ROI positive to just have someone sat there alongside the email manager, literally like tracking all the most loyal customers, what they clicked on the website, what they read, what products, and following up with dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of personalized emails every day. Like, hey, seen you click on this. Can I help you with anything? Did you know about this ingredient? Like, you clicked on this. You could send literally over 1,000 emails a day if you had enough traffic from 2 to 3 customer support reps, highly personalized emails, and it can probably be automated from AI in the future, just looking at that first party data. So what did they click on? Who's browsed the website? Almost like an army of chatbots. Just
no, that's super interesting. That's super interesting. It's basically like the new version of a salesperson, right?
Exactly.
That's super interesting.
I mean, look at your you got about 100 people, 200 people click every single email. I don't know how many don't buy. This is just like I'm just using an average D2C brand. Let's say 20 people buy those emails, but 180 people are just left. Like they click, they're interested, but nothing ever happens. Why doesn't someone go back in and retarget all those people with like a plain text email? Or if they click on things 3-4 times, like that's very, very high warm intent. It makes sense.
We should definitely create a flow that does that. Basically, the flow is very simple. Hey, I don't know if you can do this on Klaviyo, but if someone clicked the last few emails, get them into this flow, like clicked but didn't buy, get them into this flow, and the flow is just a simple text-only email. Yep. Hey, I am Adam. I work at Duradry. This is a direct email from me to you. My job is to help people find the product that works for them. Whatever bullshit you want to deal with. Please reply, and I'll guide you. I hold you by your hand, and I'm going to guide you to the process. Yeah. And just have someone sitting, just getting those replies.
I'm glad you like the idea because we're going to double your retainer fees after this call.
Oh my God. But no, seriously, can someone write that down so we can implement something like that? I'm not even kidding. This is just
sure. I'm going to bring up the post. I genuinely believe with the way AI is going, and I know Vian has experimented a lot with certain tools, much more than me, that this is feasible in the near future to have this completely automated as opposed to paying someone manually to construct the concepts. There will be a case of someone clicks this email, views this product, like bang these personalized emails out like, hey, you looked at product X, you might also be interested in this, or I'm Adam from customer support, respond to me if you have any questions. You could have a huge amount of conversations at scale, and I'm sure, as I said, it's very, very far away.
Yeah, but isn't that what, for example, liverecover.com does? Meaning, whenever there's, but I think they only do cart abandonment, right? Like they need the phone number because they are texting these people.
I'm not sure.
And of course, One Text does something similar as well. OneText.com.
Yeah, not too sure, but let's try it out and see what the results are.
Look, we've done it for a brand last year. It of course, I think the volumes were lower, and it was a little bit more on the B2B side, where we've used the Klaviyo notification function. So every single time we pick up that, let's say someone, like you've said, their behavior, they've viewed a page, twice, and they've done X, Y, and Z. It just fired off a Klaviyo notification to the sales rep on their company. And within that notification email from Klaviyo, we basically populate the dynamic fields with the person's name, email address, phone number, and just summary of their behavior. Okay. And that was essentially like a support ticket. But that was on a smaller scale. I think D2C is probably a little bit trickier if it is like high volumes and they don't have the bandwidth to support that. But it was a back-end system built in Klaviyo to just trigger those Klaviyo notifications as those. I think, Adam, you once wrote an article where you could do the same thing on like a birthday, upcoming birthday. So it triggers.
Vian, let's do that, brother. Let's do that. Meaning, you send me the notification. You send me the notification. I'll take care of every one of those people, and I'm gonna email them personally, like really. And if it works, then we figure out how to scale it, meaning like putting an outside, like just hiring someone, right? Even if, from the Philippines, quite easy.
Yeah,
And I mean, hey, could even be based off of like cart value. If you want to target the high intent, high buyers first, that kind of abandons, their cart. We would start there rather than start high up in the funnel where they're not necessarily qualified. So, Bogdan, if you're listening, brother, I hope you're taking notes.
he is listening. There we go. There's the man himself.
Yeah, dude. What a good hire. What a good hire.
He's a great guy. He's absolutely smashing it this year, especially. Like, I remember at the end of last year, we all love Bogdan, but he approached me towards the end of last year and said he really wants to push himself hard this year. And I mean, the Slack channel is just a massive energy from clients worshipping him. So his ego,
I'm the only one.
His ego must be about to explode at the moment. But huge amount of effort into his work. He's coming to see me in March as well, so that's going to be fun. I have to treat him to champagne dinner.
That's amazing. But I don't. Before I leave, Vian. So what you're saying is to start with the cart abandoners. For me to send them an email.
I think so, just because they are showing high intent, to of course purchase. So I'd probably start there, and it's smaller volumes to manage.
Okay, let's do that. Like I swear, I'm gonna email each one of these people and make them convert.
Nice. And maybe include like a Loom video or two. Like, hey, I've got the product right in my hand here. This is the product. Because I think, is it you who's doing it? When someone places an order, you send an email where you have a video saying thank you. I can't remember if it was you or someone else, but it gives that instant personal feel that, wow.
Oh yeah, we were going to do that. We're going to do that with this company that does like some sort of like deep fake thing. It's not exactly deep fake. Basically, you're saying, hey, Vihan, thank you so much for buying from us, etc., etc. And then you say, okay, the name, you're going to replace it with...
That's it.
Yeah, but we didn't end up doing that.
So much technology to try, right? It's like, it's overwhelming. I actually said to Vian is an absolute tech geek, but for me, I'm different position in the company. And when I try and jump back into the accounts on a day-to-day basis, I'm like, fuck me. The pace of technology. I think one of the biggest battles these days is just sifting through what is a distraction versus what could actually drive incremental revenue, because there's so much stuff and lots of it's exciting, but a lot of it is just fluffy nonsense as well.
100%. And when you're a small company like us, you're not looking for a 1% improvement. You need at least, leaps of 10%, right? Because, 1% of a small number is nothing, right? Like 1% for Amazon, I understand. It makes total sense, right? For us, 1% is not going to do much. We need to go and try to get, bigger jumps. And I agree with so much tech out there. Honestly, I've tested so much stuff and very few things actually, like the hypotheses behind them make sense. But then when you implement, something just doesn't happen, right? Or doesn't work.
Anything that has worked really well that you've implemented?
Anything that has worked really well that I have implemented. In which area?
So in terms of driving more revenue, is there anything that you've implemented? Not obviously something like Klaviyo.
Oh yeah, something super recent. By the way, I took the job of CRO for the company, another hat. So I became obsessed with running A/B tests myself. Okay, so this page that I'm going to show you now. By the way, the full screen pop-up, this one converts so much better than just the pop-up, at least for us, right, on A/B tests. So this page, guys, that allows you to add stuff straight from here, okay? And you see the products here, and you have the free, stuff here, the gamified, let's say, milestone-based widget. So this page, instead of the regular collection page, got an improvement on conversion rate of 30%. And also an improvement on revenue of like 40%. So not only more conversion, but also more revenue. So this was a massive win. We just figured it out, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Because honestly, we launched it, it wasn't working, and we were tweaking and tweaking and tweaking it until we made it work. And now this converts 30% better and 40% more revenue than regular collection pages. So this is a good win for us. Questions on this one?
Epic. How has that changed your overall like ad strategy, just business practices in general? Are you doing anything differently as a result of those experiments?
Of that one, not yet. This is fairly new, and we're working on ramping up our campaigns this year. Usually, like something that I discovered maybe 2 or 3 years ago, guys, is to not fight the seasonality of your product, or the bad season, let's say. So if Q3 is the worst for you and your CPAs go through the roof, then why are you gonna kill yourself spending money there, right? So I know that our season is the first half of the year. So now is that I'm starting to ramp up campaigns. I usually go a little bit dark on Q4 because very few people, and my hypothesis is very few people like to gift deodorant, but then the new year, new me type of vibe is aligned with the brand, right?
Yeah.
And that's when it makes sense to start ramping that up. So, it's a long-winded way of saying we're yet to push that page, but on A/B testing, it performs so much better that I have no doubt that it was the right thing to implement.
Sexy stuff.
Awesome. Guys, gotta go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me talk and have fun.
Pleasure as always, my friend.
Cheers to you guys, and talk to you soon.
Always appreciate it.
Cheers,
Jack.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
The legend has departed. Always fun talking to Jack.
What a man. We love him.
Right, mate, we've got a lot of email shit to sift through, and we're going to start with these big changes that everyone's obviously panicking about now, coming to Gmail and Yahoo in February 2024. Lots of people not prepared still. Fair few people got things under control, but do you want to just relay very quickly what these changes are, how they will impact D2C brands' ability to hit the inbox, and what you actually need to do to be prepared?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, buzzing topic at the moment. I mean, we all see it online. There's definitely, some camps that are in the panic. Some people are preparing themselves well. So essentially, just to summarize it, now Yahoo, Google are tightening up the email sender requirements, okay? Because there's like 2 things they really want to do is they want to create a more safer inbox for recipients that is less spammy, because we know that the big ISPs, the Googles, the Apples, and so forth, they want to preserve the security and the experience for their users, okay, because people are using their platforms. People always say that it's owned media because I own the email database and so forth. It's true to some extent, but you're always sending it through a middleman. Okay, so these guys are tightening up some of the requirements here. Now in Feb 2024, they will essentially, start, I think, monitoring these things a lot closer. Now, some of the things that you do want to get in place, this is very high level. Okay, it goes into a lot of very specific details and nuances. But on a high level, the very first thing that you do want to look out for is getting your email authentication in place. Now, that is quite technical for the average guy. It's centered around configuring your SPF, your DKIM, your DMARC, your ARC, all these different, authentication policies and things that you need to get in place to essentially protect the recipients from malicious messages and spoofing and phishing messages, and being impersonated and so forth. Okay, so critical to send positive signals to the ISPs that you are an authentic sender. Okay, people can't hijack your sends to, of course, send malware and spam and so forth. Okay, so that's the very first thing. Get in touch with a professional if you do want to get it implemented. Tons of tools out there, tons of specialists. We can even help if you want to get support there. The second one is your infrastructure configuration. Are you sending from a dedicated sending domain, or are you sending from a shared IP pool? It's not a problem if you're sending via a shared IP pool. If you use Klaviyo and you are sharing via, it's not a problem, okay? Because if the shared IP pool, if the reputation of the shared IP addresses, okay, if that is in good health, good standing, you're going to be okay, okay? But you don't want any of those senders, being blacklisted and so forth, because those negative signals on the shared IP will reflect back to your sending. So we always advise people to just get a dedicated sending domain configured. That is specifically in Klaviyo. I'm sure all the other ESPs out there handle it a little bit differently. It's a quick enough thing to do. That also then ties into your the email you use as your forward email, your headers, and so forth. So it can also become quite complicated, but to some extent, it's pretty straightforward. Third thing to look out for is, of course, subscriptions. So two things you want to tackle under subscriptions. First, you want to make it easy for people to subscribe and opt in to your emails in, of course, legal ways. Some states or territories out there do require double opt-in, but in the States, if you operate within the States, I think it's a lot more relaxed, but you need to make it easy to opt in, but in legal manner. You can't enforce it, of course. Okay, people need to consent to opt in to your newsletter list. So make it easy for people to subscribe, and then on the flip side, make it easy for people to unsubscribe. Either by having an unsubscribe link in your footer, or of course, Google is now enforcing it where you've probably seen it before. They've got an unsubscribe, one-click unsubscribe button that hovers at the top of the email. Is unsubscribe a bad thing? Not necessarily, because you do also want to clean out your list. If it's people that is just ramping up your ESP costs, they're not going to engage with your emails. That also sends a negative signal to the ISPs, right? But you do want to monitor that, keep it under control, and so forth. And then the next thing is spam rates. Okay, they are going to be monitoring spam rates, people flagging your emails as being spam. That's different to an unsubscribe action. Okay, Spam rate is just I think it's the negative signal you send over is just, one of the worst ones that you can have, because too much of that and you can, kind of get flagged as being blacklisted or spammy. They actually have they've got a yardstick or a measurement benchmark here. So according to Google's own requirements, you want to keep the spam rate below 0.10%, 0.1%. Okay, so that's quite low, but that's very achievable, because spam rates for most DTC brands aren't that high. And then you want to avoid it going over like 0.3%. Then it becomes a massive red flag. So I'd probably say between 0.1, 0.3, and you're okay, which is a very reasonable range. How do you monitor that? I mean, most, probably not most ESPs, but like Klaviyo, for instance, they've got it baked in. You can set up postmaster tools to also monitor parts of that. So do keep watch. If people flag you as a spammer, you want to stop with your practices, which then ties back into, targeting the correct segments when you send out emails, so it doesn't become spammy. And if you don't make it easy for people to unsubscribe, what will they do? They will mark you as a spammer.
Exactly. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it sort of brings us back full circle to the conversation with Jack, where we were actually, or at least I was advocating being a bit more relaxed about aggressively sending to users using gimmicky types of things to try and not necessarily trick them, but just surprise them in the inbox. But there's a real risk of those techniques backfiring as well and really harming your deliverability. There always has been, but it seems as though now the margin for error is much lower.
Yeah. Absolutely, you do want to keep that into account. You don't want to be silly and obviously risk your database or your sender reputation from getting flagged. So that is a true thing. Yes.
Quick comment from Seren here. Do you want to tackle it?
Give me a second. Let me just open up my screen a little bit bigger. Oh, you say you're taking your answer to the email. Hope I'm correct. Yes, I think I'm not the most technical Klaviyo person at the moment, but I think there are cases where you can configure it to take care of that. Yes, but I think I think Google is look. Google's not the only ISP. I get it. I mean, there's also Apple and so forth. But I believe they do in certain cases. You can configure it to take care for you on that matter. You can.
And when we talk about deliverability being as well, I know obviously, like you said, there is other ISPs that have a decent share, but really what we're really focused on, if we're honest, it's like the 80-20 rule, right? It's Gmail optimization across most accounts.
I think it's the big ones are Apple and Google, of course, Gmail. And then you start to look at Yahoo and all other like Hotmail and so forth. But Apple, Gmail, your big ones. I think Apple is the bigger one, in fact, just because the amount of people buying Apple devices in the States, especially. So it's huge. Apple it's huge.
I remember on my last 2 visits in 2022, as you may or may not know, I've got a Google Pixel, so I'm an Android. People thought I was a freak. They refused to communicate with me because I didn't have an iPhone. I was actually shocked. Here, it's much more of an equal split between Android and iPhones, but in the States, it's like, God, it must be 99% iPhone. If you don't have one, you can't communicate because everyone's on iMessage, and very few people, at least to my knowledge, use WhatsApp the same way we do.
It's massive. And one thing that people don't always take into account. So I know, okay, Bimi, for the people listening, whoever knows what Bimi is, it's also another, strong signal that you can send over to the ISPs. A lot of people enable a sender icon or avatar profile within their Google account if they use Google to send emails. That's their domain setup, and then they reckon, cool, my avatar or logo appears within people's inboxes when I send emails. Now Apple is not going to support Google's configurations. Okay. So you still need to go through an authentication verification process to set up BIMI so it is accepted across more than one ISP. Now, the quickest route is we constantly do it. Go into Google Analytics GA4, go look at the devices people are using, browse your website, and you'll see many times Apple is the lion's share of that. And that's usually your first indication to go, right, so if I want to take BIMI serious and 85% of my traffic users are Apple device users, just pay the damn verification license, the yearly one. It's about $150 a month, I believe, 120. So yeah.
How much, sorry, did you say 150 per month or 1,500 per year?
1,500 per year. So it's about 110, 120. That was the last time I checked. So it's a small investment, but I think it's a decent one. You know?
Hey, you remember being, I won't call any names out, but we have been asked to split test BIMI before over an annual basis by the investment.
So how important do you think BIMI will be in deliverability? It's hard to put a number. We've had clients ask us, what is the ROI of BIMI? And it's a bit of a silly question to ask, not to be funny, because you can't tie a specific weighting to it. Because why not? Because the ISPs will never reveal that, because then people can, of course, bullshit, the algorithm or the scoring system. Also, think about it from a user point of view. Okay, someone sees you, so they've got their inbox and they've got tons of emails. If they get familiar with your branding and so forth, okay, they will see your branding as the icon, be it like Duradry, for instance. It's very red and bright and bold. They will then instantly see it from Duradry, and it looks a little bit more legit. So first, think about the end user. And then you can, of course, make the numbers and go, right, if it looks more, legit, more people will likely open your email and engage with it and so forth, okay, in a crowded inbox. And then engagement is one of their biggest signals, the positive signals to send over to the ISPs. So think about it from a snowball effect, benefit. If people see it looks legit, they recognize the brand, they open, engage, bing, 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 sending great signals to the ISPs. And that's where the money sits in terms of inbox placement rates and so forth. But good question. I love that.
The more you learn about deliverability, not to dumb it down, it is incredibly technical when you get into all the small nuances. And I wouldn't like to undermine Nick Correct if he's watching the deliverability god on how essential it is and how much goes into it. But a lot of it just boils down to common sense, don't you think? Being like, authenticate your email, have a good list hygiene in terms of people opting in, provide a positive customer experience, send segmented emails, let people unsubscribe freely, and don't fucking spam them. Like, it really is, for me, the keep it simple, stupid in many ways.
Yeah. That is very true, and it's especially true on small to medium-sized businesses.
Correct.
When you're talking about the big senders, you want to get the Nick in to look at the very specific configurations, because he talks a different language to us, and I'm sure other email deliverability experts out there will say the same thing. There, you want to be so specific. We've had cases where I need to think now, but your sender email address is potentially support at, okay? That's not a best practice on online marketing emails, because you're sending a different signal to the ISPs. So those very nuanced things need a very deep dive by an expert. But you are on the money there. The foundational things is applicable to most brands, and especially small, medium.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed it. Not to obviously undermine or diminish the importance of that, especially for big brands at scale, because like you said, then you're dealing with things like multi-domains and different geographical regions and different types of communication emails. It can get incredibly technical, so I wouldn't want to discredit anyone who works in that profession. But anyway, we all know email deliverability is boring, and what we really want to talk about is AI because that's sexy. So let's come on to some of the ways and just be completely candid about this, that we're using AI within our agency, because it's absolute nonsense these days that any agency claims that they don't use AI. And we actually had a question from a prospect, if you recall, the other day, was, how much of a role does AI play in your content creation? Well, actually, what's the problem with using something to produce a better end outcome? Because that's all that matters, right? I understand if it's from the pretense that, oh, is it going to be incredibly generic and boring? Yes, you would want to not use AI in this method, but we've seen AI, at least the initial experiments that we've had, and especially you, as a great enabler of creativity, far from being generic. I think, again, we're new to it. Most other people are still getting to grips with it, but it's really helping us in many ways drive efficiency, creativity, and ultimately better outcomes for our clients. So anything that you want to delve into in particular that you think is exciting, worth talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, before I go into some use cases, especially for e-commerce teams, we all know the saying, it's all about your prompt quality. Okay. I think prompt engineering, we all know that's the best starting point. And then secondly, not to delve into the science of it and the complexity, but training it, feeding it. If you don't feed it enough, you'll get generic bullshit. Okay. That is a true fact. For instance, we've built a proofreading bot within ChatGPT. Once we feed it with copy, okay, it will do the proofreading for us and it will tell us where we went wrong. You're not allowed to use the word free. Remember to write American English, and you can't say this product will solve your sweating problems, because we can't solve it, but we can improve it. But we've trained that model to, of course, spit out the correct thing. So please, people, don't. ChatGPT out of the box will not be great. So it's your responsibility to, of course, configure it correctly. Okay. Just a pre-warning there. So how do we use it? A couple of use cases, and feel free to DM me on LinkedIn if you want, guidance on this. I love this topic, and the Magnet Monster team are also embracing it. So the first one there is buyer research. Okay, you can use it as a research tool. It's absolutely phenomenal. Think about empathy mapping, buyer persona profiling. We prompted to generate an empathy map. Take Duradry, for instance. I ChatGPT generate an empathy map for me. Now, an empathy map tells you exactly what the target audience, what they hear, what they see, some of their problems, some of the action points. It even ties it to emotional measure, emotional facets of consumers. I sweat a lot. I recently did one for Duradry. Sweating at work, so I can't conduct proper meetings. I struggle to speak to a crowd because at work I sweat. Workplace
That's
sweat.
true. You do sweat really badly on calls. I've noticed it many times. Like it's unbearable.
Is it? Luckily, we're remote, so. Look, I'm already married, so I don't need to find a wife. So if I sweat, it's also part of her, it's her problem to face. So that's fine. I don't mind.
That's it, right? We let ourselves go once we get hitched.
Exactly, and our clients only want to see ROI on stuff. They don't care about the sweating, and so I don't really care. But I'll use Duradry going forward. Thanks, brother. So yeah, man, research tool. We've also done cases where we feed it with a bulk of reviews, and we ask it to pull common themes out of the reviews. Sentiment, like sentiment analysis. What do the positive people say? What are the detractors saying? And then what do you do with that data? I mean, email, a copy, campaign concepts, ideas, paid ad ideas, landing page messaging, the list goes on. Okay, that's the first one. Competitor research. We've used it to do competitor research. ChatGPT, find reviews for this particular brand, products, pricing, and so forth. It does it splendidly. Okay. Ideation, we use it as an ideation tool. I've recently published a post on my LinkedIn where you can ask it to generate campaign concepts, generate welcome flow ideas. The list goes on. It's absolutely brilliant. And then lastly, of course, a production tool. Okay. Like Adam said, if it generates better copy than a human person, of course, there'll always be a human person that will tweak and refine it. But you can generate copy in a bulk manner, in an individual manner, in different formats. If you feed it correctly with your correct prompt, you can ask it to generate the copy in a specific format with specific parameters and in specific lengths, like few within 160 characters. Don't use emojis, don't this. So absolutely. And like I've said, we have generated a proofreading bot that we use to triple check our work against a tone of voice guideline. So those are some of the things. I know a lot of e-commerce SaaS brands out there are, of course, tying OpenAI into their tools. Live chat, customer support tools. I know Shopify is also doubling down on on that front, where instead of doing the manual work of creating a Shopify coupon code for 5% off these products, you can actually prompt Shopify to do it for you. Like, hey, I need a code with this and this and this, generate it, and it generates it for you. And then Klaviyo, some of the ESPs out there, Klaviyo, Yotpo, they all going full on AI, segmentation creation, and so forth. So ChatGPT is just one side of it, but AI in general, we know is such a big thing. But use ChatGPT, pay the pro fee, the premium fee. It's just phenomenal.
It's huge ROI for us, isn't it? It's been a massive net positive, I would say, on the business. And as well as I do, Ian, and this has always been one of my gripes with strategists, to be candid, who've worked with us in the past and just people I've dealt with, is that, I don't have enough ideas on what I can say for this brand, or we've got like 10 email concepts we need to send out, but I don't know what to say. We did this last month. There really is no excuse for that level of effort and lackluster creativity anymore, because you can get hundreds of ideas within minutes now with these tools. And the exciting thing is, I think, from an agency perspective, is that yes, that will enable you to definitely take on more clients. Now, obviously, there is a limit to how well you can service anyone, but the quality of and the efficiency that you can drive through using these tools is just astronomical, and there seems to be no limit in many ways on them. So far from being something that I think clients even were skeptical about, and there's a layer of friction, like, well, do you use AI, when they will come on board, it's actually now already the tides have turned. It's like, tell us about how you use AI, because if you don't, you just look like you're living in the Stone Ages already, and that's just the way it is in the agency world. So again, you use it right, or you get left behind.
100%. And again, it all comes down to how you train it. If you feel, a lot of people have this notion that the copy looks mechanical, it looks ChatGPT, you haven't set your tones correctly. Like, I want you to write it in this tone and feed it. So do that properly, and you won't get it looks mechanical, it looks too formal. You won't get that. Yeah, absolutely, you're on the money there.
Awesome stuff, man. So before we round things out, you might want to share your screen for this one. Now let's be honest with people here, being we've been doing this for a long time. You joined the company in 2021, I think, summertime. And there's been a lot of changes at Market Monster since then. I think I made a comment in one of the Slack channels we're in at times. I've steered the company like the Titanic, and it's been bloated. And anyway, without going into too many details, we've always had a very rigid structure on our team setup and the way the company operates. And there's been tons of conversations online about pod-based system versus cross-functional teams, and how do you organize team members to work together on client accounts. Tell us how we structure our teams, because you've been driving a lot of the change that we've implemented this year. In fact, I'm scared at this point you're just going to completely take over the company and make me redundant. But luckily, this has been, again, another net positive overall. So it would be just great to share with some of the people watching how we've set things up. So I'm going to add your screen to share now and go into the details.
Cool. And stop lying there. You wanted me to take over your job so you can have more chill time. So stop lying for the audience, please. Okay, so team structure. So for any people that are in agencies in that environment, I think we all deal with these things on a daily basis. If you are a remote team distributed across many regions and time zones, it becomes even harder to manage. Now, we've tried a couple of things within the agency. Okay, an account manager with a strategist. How does that pairing work? Or only have one client-facing person, they do all the work, and you've got a production team and so forth. Okay, pros and cons to everything. I'm not going to discredit any of those structures, but we've decided to structure our team like this. Okay, or the agency. Now, there's two sides. You've got the co-founders. Okay, brilliant guys. Okay, we all know they're legends. They're sitting there now, and me here. I'm of course looking across different areas. Now, we've got two sides to our agency. We've got the agency operations, which is basically the people that work on the fulfillment, the client fulfillment part of the agency. And then you've got the marketing, partnership, sales side of the business. They focus on getting the leads in, partnering up with people, podcasts, and the list goes on. Okay, that's a bit separate from the agency operation. Now, I want to focus on the agency operation here. I can't zoom in even more. But what we've decided with our structure is the captain of the ship. So when a client signs with us, we assign a couple of role players that will deal with that particular account. At the top, there is the captain of the ship, okay? The retention marketing specialist or strategist. They are the people that knows how to work with numbers and Klaviyo and strategies and rebuy and AOV and LTV and profit margins and all the technical or the know-how around, driving strategies, retention stuff, first to second purchase rates, and the list goes on. They are also the client-facing people because they need to present, plan, negotiate, collaborate with the client. Very, very difficult role. I know there's a lot of people aspiring to become a strategist. They handle a lot of stress on their shoulders. Shout out to all strategists out there. We appreciate it, even though we don't always show it. Okay, anyways, then we've decided to split our services into campaigns on the one side and list growth and flows on the other side. Instead of having one person managing list growth, flows, campaigns, technical stuff, we've separated, we've divided those focus areas. So we've got service owners dealing with campaigns only and a service owner dealing with list growth and flows only. Okay. Then, of course, you've got production owners, engineers, designers, copywriters, and so forth. Okay. Now, so this part and Q&A check. Now, the reason why we've separated our services is because, again, I've made a bit of a benefit list here. Is you've got more focused lanes and responsibility, so the ownership there is more refined. It's also easier to grasp it. Okay, you don't need to learn everything about campaigns and flows and list growth and deliverability and everything that goes with it. Campaign people know how to work with campaign stuff. Okay, short emails, punchy copy, seasonality around emails, type of campaign emails, and so forth. There's better collaboration if you split it out into different, single lanes because, people they're almost forced to sync up. Because if the campaign people are doing great emails and we want to apply some of that on the flow side of the business, of course, collaboration needs to happen. So it almost encourages more collaboration. It's a more streamlined process because I know if I need to ping the campaign, owners, because we have a busy season, Black Friday and whatnot, I can streamline that particular lane with better processes, better systems, better tools, and so forth. Okay, because I can streamline that part. The moment you widen it, it becomes very hard to streamline because you almost lose control of it. Temp handovers and replacements are a lot easier for all the agency people out there. Actually, any business, if you need to replace a person, let's say a project manager that focuses on campaigns, list growth, email deliverability flows, and everything else, when you replace them, you need to find a person that can also either learn all those things in a very short space of time, or they are already experts at it. Very, very difficult. But if I hire someone and I'm looking for someone that can just handle campaigns, the onboarding length or duration is also shortened because I'll replace the campaign person, the campaign owner, and go, right, this is how campaigns work. Have a look at all these different campaigns, look at previous client accounts. This is 10 dates and I'll get them up to speed in a much shorter space of time. So that becomes a dream for an operational person. And then I think lastly is it's also a lot easier to monitor and control quality within some of these areas. Let's say for argument's sake, we see, wow, okay, we're not getting list growth. Let's say the technical parts of it, we're not getting that nailed. It's now a very isolated case, okay? And I'm only disrupting maybe 1 or 2 people involved in that very specific lane. I'm not disrupting 4 or 5 people handling that part. And I can clearly communicate with that person, have sit downs, give them ownership to also generate SOPs and videos and whatnot, and do training because it's controllable in that small environment. If it's too big, you lose control. So yeah, and same goes with engineering, design stuff, copy stuff. We isolate some of these cases. Of course, we don't isolate the different departments from one another because that's silly. But we isolate parts of it so it can integrate and sync with the rest of the departments. So that's kind of what we've moved over to. Early days for us, but so far I think the team is loving it. People can wake up in the morning and they know kind of their part in the puzzle, and they can double down on that. We've also lastly, then I'm done. We're also giving each of these people ownership to share. Like campaign people, I want you guys to bring hot campaign shit to the table, because they see campaigns constantly. List growth flow people bring shit to the table. You see it every single day. That's what you live and breathe. Same goes for engineering, design, copy, and everything just feeds into one another. So it becomes an absolutely nice engine that we are currently, trialing. Or it is a new structure. We're not trialing. We're not going back. And that's basically my share. I hope someone out there found it valuable. But if you want if you want to collab on some of your pain points, our pain points, DM me. I'm happy to talk about operational stuff, frameworks, processes. I live and breathe it. So send me a DM.
Absolutely fantastic work, man. And yeah, so far, early days, but the change does seem to have been received really well from our team, and a lot of positive moods and morale in camp. And just to touch on a specific point, especially around flows and campaigns and why we've isolated them almost like a SaaS business where someone is an owner of them. We did this because, and I know this from conversations with other email, SMS agency owners, the daily slog on campaigns always ends up taking priority over the automation and list growth, which are equally important facets. And there just doesn't seem to be a way, at least that I've seen from other teams working on this issue, to prioritize flows and list growth and take these areas of the business seriously without becoming incredibly distracted and then leading to that production chaos on campaigns, so to speak. And this is not just a problem that we have. It seems to be ubiquitous across the agency, because for all the planning that you can do for any type of brand, within e-commerce, it's so dynamic and changing that a lot of the time the plans just get thrown out the window, or at least there's changes to 10 to 20% of the strategy. And that's in best case scenario, right? There is brands that are a lot worse. When that happens, instantly the flow work is going to get deprioritized, because the priority in the business becomes sending the campaign out to generate revenue on Wednesday, and then Thursday making the tweaks. So all the resources will constantly get shifted over to cover this. And it was very distracting on getting an equally important business live. So that's some of the logic behind why we made this switch. And again, I spoke to a lot of other agency owners. They all have the same issue. So if they do go ahead and implement this, they need to pay Vian a commission.
And to caveat that, of course, there are, models out there that's a little bit more templatized that you can get out in a rapid fashion. There's a ton of agencies driving amazing success from that, and that's perfectly fine. There's a space for everybody. But if you're trying to manage a more tailor-made type of service, where you absolutely wanna, introduce more complexities and specific cases, it's on the money how you've stipulated it. Flows can tend to become a little bit delayed because of the campaign importance or priority. So yeah, some good pointers there.
Yeah, and again, nothing against agencies that template work. We don't do that personally, but we've seen brands have success doing that, and agencies obviously have success running the business that way. It's not us, but to each their own. So with that being said, doesn't look like we've got any other questions come through, man. Parting thoughts for 2024. What do you think it's going to be the year of in email?
I think, of course, we all know there's a big shift in the AI space. Everybody wants to tap into AI and not feel left behind. I think it's still very, very early days for people to really have that seamlessly integrated into their business, but that will always be a big shift. The email deliverability thing is I'm keen to see how that's going to pan out, and if we are going to see any decline in numbers. And then I think, an ongoing conversation is around retention marketing. First to second purchase, how can we get more repeat purchase orders in the system? Because CAC, paid advertising, is so damn expensive, and it will constantly be expensive. And then the fourth one, I think there's still a big conversation happening around engaging, creating interactive emails. I remember Mr. Feastable team, they did a big campaign around interactive emails, and I think it blew the trend and the hotness around it. It blew up the space. So I think that kind of woke up that beast of, okay, how can we introduce more interactive emails? I've seen it today actually, where a brand sent me an email and they said, hey, something damn exciting. They blurred out the hero image, and I clicked on the button, and it actually rendered out the image within the email, rather than taking me out to a landing page to reveal the magic. I think it was a new product launch, but that is a good signal to the ISPs because it's engagement. So I think people are going to marry interactive stuff with engagement quite a lot, because we all want to show those positive signals to the ISPs because they're tightening their requirements. So I think that space is going to heat up in the D2C world, between even among small and medium brands. So exciting stuff. And then of course new ESPs entering the arena, or they've already been in the space for a long time, but they're tightening up their features, capabilities. So it's going to be an interesting market in the tech space as well.
It definitely is. And I think a lot of that tech's going to become accessible, better price points for merchants as well. So it will be fascinating. But look, man, I think we covered a massive amount for this first episode. So for anyone who's watching and has follow-up questions, obviously drop them in for Vian, Jack, myself in the comment section. We will be posting the episodes on YouTube, as well as all the main podcasts, syndicating it on Spotify, Apple, etc. So you're very welcome to go and watch the recording post-production. But Vian, thanks for your time, mate. And until next week, we'll see everyone then.
See everybody then. And I'm happy to share tips on how to reduce sweating in meetings and when you're speaking, like Adam pointed out. So if you want tips on that, I'll also drop it in the section. Thanks, people. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Adam.
All the best, mate. Cheers.
Have a good one. Cheers,